Hello, everyone. Today's show, I have a businesswoman that I truly admire. Her name is Shannon Pace-Brinker, and I'm always in awe of women that are just go-getters and fearless, and from the outside, they're just constantly, coming up with ideas and executing them and just going after what they want. And for me, that is so inspiring. And I know maybe for some people it might be intimidating to be around people like that. But for me, I just love to soak up the energy and soak up the knowledge. And I think it's because I wish I could be that way and just be fearless and not think about things and just do it. And so I just love watching women kick ass. And Shannon is one of those women. So I was very excited to have her on. We've been talking about it for a while, and she's a busy, busy lady. She is a part of the dental community, and I'm just going to read a few things from her website. So it says Shannon Pace-Brinker is a national and international speaker. She's a published author and practicing dental assistant for over 30 years. She's published over 200 articles in regards to clinical application and taught thousands of dental assistants across the U.S. and Canada. She has her own publication for dental assistants called From Our Side of the Chair. She started one of the first online platforms designated for dental assistants called the Academy of Chairside Assisting. Shannon and her team of dental assistant trainers have taught over 60,000 dental assistants over the last 6 years on clinical applications for dental assistants. She is absolutely amazing, and she's a dear friend of ours and a dear friend of my husband's, who is a dentist. And so she wanted to come on and talk about time with her children, time lost with her children, and things that she's learned as a mother throughout the years. So I welcome you to join us in this conversation. Hi, I am your host, Lyanette Talley, and you are listening to Virago 24/7. Virago is Latin for female warrior, and 24/7 is for all day, every day. Virago 24/7 is a weekly podcast that brings diverse women together to talk about life and our experiences in this world. We share our views on self-love, mental health, marriage, children, friendships, and really anything that needs to be talked about. Here, you will find everyday growth, everyday healing with everyday warriors. Just give me my space to move. 'Cause it's my thoughts, what I want, and I want what I want. So, hello, Briana.
Hi.
The last few shows we've had Jenna and me and a guest, and Jenna couldn't join us today. So I called up Briana Brooks. And if you've been following the show, you've heard her voice before. So thank you for being here, Briana.
Of course. My pleasure.
And today I have someone that I'm so excited to join us. Her name is Shannon Pace-Brinker. And everyone knows, if you've been listening and they know me, you know that my husband's a dentist. So Shannon is a big deal in the dental community. And she's a mom, she's a wife, she's a businesswoman, she's all the things. And so I'm so excited to have Shannon Pace-Brinker on with us. Hey, Shannon.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I met you through Philip, obviously, and Philip and I have been together married for going on 17 years. So you knew him before I knew him. And he describes you as his sister, like you have a sister-brother relationship. So he met you way back when he was going up to North Carolina to do some dental classes and seminars and all that good stuff, and you worked up there.
I would tell you he's definitely right. It's like my brother. Anytime it's funny because we don't even talk about that side of it, but my husband knows. I said, I tell him I love him, and I do because he's just such a good person, and I love what he represents, and I will tell you that if there's any husband and wife that I admire, it's you and your family, and I think that it speaks words, But he's always been such an honorable person and just somebody that you can count on, And I love how he cares about his team and the people around him, and so many of us, I think, give up on people. And that is not something that's going to happen when it comes to Dr. Talley. And I think that that's just what I love about him, and just a believer in people, where in this day and age, we don't have enough believers in people around. So I just feel so honored to be in his presence. But the other thing is I think that he just relates to everyone, and having kids and life just being so hard and just going through so many things, even just putting COVID, totally aside, just being a family person, caring about family, and having a balance of business and family is something that I know we all struggle for, and just having the time also for ourselves, and for our beliefs, is probably what attracted me to him the most. And I'm still looking for that balance.
Yeah.
Just got this morning early and trying to get up early and have time to do that, and just to listen to just even words from different people. It's been amazing. And so when you asked me to be a part of this podcast, I thought, gosh, I could go in so many ways, down so many roads.
Oh, yeah. And we still can. And we still can. We have many other shows that we can do together. So, yeah.
Well, I will say that, being a mom of 6 kids, actually I had 7. One was a twin and passed when I was pregnant. And then now having twins later in life, it's been fun, and one of the things about my family that is very different is the fact that my older 4 children are biracial, and my twins are Caucasian, and it's been interesting, I think, and fun, because my oldest, I have 8 grandchildren, and when we go out, people look at us like, whose kids are those?
How did you guys get together? Yeah.
We sit together and look at us. They're like, okay, now she's probably the grandmother, but whose kids are these? And then you got, these kids, and they all look so different. But it's so fantastic, and I would say that out of everything that I feel I got from COVID, you got to find some kind of lining. It's taking yourself back and realizing at the end of the day that having the time with the family that we had was so precious, and meant so much. And I think that was an eye opener, and probably the second eye opener I've had in my life. The first eye opener that I think that I had was just being at the time when I lived in Charlotte, and when I met Dr. Talley, I was married, but just focused so much on my career and just spent so much time in dentistry. It's like I was all in, and that's just how I was raised. You give it your all, but I feel like I lost so much time with my kids. I never could find the balance trying to be a good mom and a good provider for my family. I lost all of the time that, and you can't get it back, and I always said that if I ever redid anything, I would not do things the same. And, all these years with my kids, and my older kids, not giving them the chance to play ball and not really, gymnastics or playing sports. I was always so focused and think just, I had to be dedicated to my job 24/7, that I put my job before my family and really before my marriage. And I really know 100% that, you can't blame things on one person. And it's like, how do you undo that? You really can't undo it. All you can do is try to change what you can change. And when COVID hit and trying to have my own business now, and moved to Virginia and have my own business now, having my kids, my first 4, when I moved here, I met my husband who was in the military. And I moved away really because I was going through divorce, and I just needed a fresh start. And one of the doctors that I met there lived here in Virginia. And he said, why don't you move to Virginia? And I was like, shoot, no, I am not moving to Virginia. I lived in Charlotte. It was a great place. And when I moved here, it was very different, starting over. And after many years, I met my husband that I'm with now. And he was in the military, and he's been in the military for 29 years. And part of his, he had never been married, and he was 42 when we met. And he said, listen, part of the deal is I want kids. And I was like, man, you're crazy. I am not doing this again. I got 4 kids, and at the time my daughter was 16, and so I was like, shoot, no. But I loved him, and I was like, kind of, like I said, part of the deal, and it wasn't fair to him, but I had already been through that, and I actually had tubal ligation, and when he told me he wanted kids, I was like, man, I must really love you, or I am the dumbest person on the planet. I am completely dumb. And I would tell you that my mindset was, my grandmother had 12 kids, and yes, and and like I said, 12 kids, of course that was back in the days where there wasn't nothing to do, to live. We were backwoods cotton pickers, and, my family lived on a farm, and 12 kids was, that's just kind of the norm, and I will say that I love kids, so I thought, well, shoot, I've got, 4 kids, and it'd be easy to have kids. So it'd be a slam dunk, even though I already had tubal ligation. And I would tell you, it was one of the hardest things I'd ever been through, because I thought it was going to be so easy. And it wasn't, we tried 6 times, and it was tough. It was one of the toughest things, being on a plane and traveling. And I teach, not just in dental practice, but I teach dentistry. So I would be on a plane, and plane's moving, and I'm like, I gotta get myself a shot, on the plane, and in just going through all these meds and ups and downs, and just having so many disappointments. I thought it was going to be so easy. I went into it just like, shoot, I've got all these kids, it's going to be a slam dunk. And it was not. It was not. And I had a miscarriage. I actually almost died, because the doctor told me, I went in, and and they basically said, hey, this was my second round of IVF, and I remember just sitting in the waiting room and watching all of these people sitting in the waiting room, and I knew what they were there for. I knew the look on their face, and it was like, we're all here for the same reason, but nobody even talked to each other. It was like, I know what you're here for, but I'm not going to look at you. And it was just a different life. And I would tell you that, coming home and just telling myself, wow, this is just something different, but I remember saying to my husband, if we get pregnant, I am not going to do the same thing again that I did with my first kids, because I lost all the time with them. And again, they're only little once. And I would go to, I remember when they were little, I would go pick them up from daycare, and we would still be working on patients, because, Dr. Nash, the doctor I work for, who Dr. Talley does mentorship for there at the Institute in Charlotte, would basically say, we've got patients tonight. And every time, he wouldn't even tell us. But it was expected of us to be an easy assistant, get work on them by yourself. And I would go home and get my kids and bring them back. And again, you can't get it back. And that's one of the things that I think is so important, is to just, thinking about where I am now, and going through this road of IVF that nobody talks about, is really something that when you asked me about the podcast, I thought, what am I going to talk about? And I said, I think the most important thing is, sometimes things happen in life for a reason. And I feel like for me, with COVID, my husband lost his mother during COVID, and it really opened my eyes, not only to just spending time and being here with my kids every day, but having the time that I never had with my older kids, and just telling myself, I got to be a better mom, and I got to be a better grandmother. And then just knowing what we went through to have these kids is so important. And it's right on the, actually yesterday, and I am not making this up, the Jones Institute was where I went to here, and it's the first test tube baby was at the Jones Institute. And so that's where I went to a place first. I went to a lady that had all this hype, and oh my God, if I told you the money that we spent, I could have bought a car and paid cash for what we went through with the first, time. Because out here I am thinking and having a big head, and it's going to be easy. I'm like, slam dunk.
Yeah.
And this lady really promised us the world. She really did. And just having that disappointment, and it was such a circus act, I'll be honest. That's the only thing I can compare it to, that I said, I'm never doing this again. And one of my friends said, you shouldn't have that. You should go to the Jones Institute. You need to get a second opinion. And, you can't change things. You can only move forward. And you're so, dedicated to this. You owe it to yourself. And when we went there to have a second opinion and to share with them all the things that happened and what we went through, I just fell in love with the doctor there. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to give this a chance. And knowing the background of the Jones Institute, and them being a teaching institute, and knowing that that they don't promise thing. They just very black and white. And then, of course, I had to like him, or I wouldn't have done it 5 more times.
Wow.
But one of the things that I learned was it's not something that they promise you, and there's no real science to it. But yesterday, after going through it so many times, of course, I'm finally successful. I got a call yesterday, and they basically said to me, tell me to please give them a call back. And I'm like, why are they calling me? My kids are just turned 9. And so when I called, she said, I just want you to know that we still have your embryos. And I got to be honest, Lyanette, and we didn't even talk about this before I came on. I said, what do you mean you still have them? I signed a paper, because I didn't want to donate them. Not selfishly, but just, I didn't want to donate them. And I had, eggs left over, and I'm not going to get pregnant again. I'm 52. But, just making the decision that my husband and I did, and then they're telling me they still have them.
Wow.
Because the Jones Institute is closing down. And so they're like, within 3 months, we're going to be closed. And I said, you've got to be kidding, because this is so important what they have built. And she said, well, we've made the decision that we're going to close. And I said, well, who are people going to go to? What are they going to do? Because it's amazing some of the friends that I did make and just hearing that, but then knowing I was going to be doing the podcast with you today and talking about the time that you spend with your kids is so valuable and so important in family, but also this other area of, just spending the time with your kids, but knowing some of the roads that people travel and and the conversations that no one has. It just really was something like, wow, this hit home. And I came on my site and I'm like, I got to tell you something, honey. Because my husband was shocked. We thought that was already, closed and that file was put away. But then to hear this and then knowing we were going to do the podcast today, I was just like, wow, I already was going to be talking about the time with family, but then just thinking about, giving somebody inspiration that might be listening today is to keep on going and don't stop, and if you feel family is important, don't give up, because, you just never know what's possible until you just keep on going, and having the faith to do that.
Because I have a friend, one of my really good friends, one of the first people I met when I moved to Georgia. She's 42, no kids, and she's struggling. I mean, they've been trying for years and years and years. And so, yeah, it's been so hard for her. So I can't relate, but, I have a friend who's, shared, the struggles with me. So are they making you decide what to do with them, or what? Like, how shocking is that? 9 years later, it's like, hello, you have embryos here. Wow.
Yeah, we already made the decision. We'd already made the decision, just being really open here, is we'd already made the decision. We didn't want to donate them, only because we just didn't, with the ancestry.com, and you can find things out and just all of that. We didn't want, honestly, for someone, and again, that's just our decision. A part of me was like, we don't want to donate them to science. We didn't want to, think, well, gosh, if we give them to someone else, what if they, the child came back and was angry at us for doing that to them and to the family. And so we'd already made the decision that, we were going to just, not keep them anymore. But we thought it was already done. And then yesterday to get this call was like, okay, are we really done?
Yeah.
and of course I'm way too old and I have no, I'm so tired already, but it was just like, wow. But I think selfishly, it was just the fact of just hearing this and thinking, oh my God, what do you mean? And then telling me that they're shutting down just also made me sad, and just having that, I would say just sitting in that waiting room, it really taught me how to do consults with patients in my own business and how to not make promises to people and just to be very honest about the world and life, and especially now more than ever, you just got to be honest with people. And I think that we're just at a stage where that's probably one of the good things I think that's coming from all the things that we've all been through is just being honest. But most importantly, giving people faith, and just how precious this family is, because I can tell you that I try every weekend now to get my family together. I mean, every Sunday, that's kind of a thing now. Every Sunday, everybody comes over and we cook and we just sit around and have fun. And it's precious, and again, you can't get it back because you don't know what can happen tomorrow.
So So going back to the beginning when you're talking about, your 4 older kids and how, so you're in dentistry, obviously, but people don't really understand like how much you've had to do, like the work that you've had to do and the sacrifices you have to make to where you are now. Like people don't really understand, like you started as a dental assistant, correct?
Yes, I actually started as just an office trained assistant. I wanted a good career. I actually had a scholarship to be a music major, and I was a drum major in my high school, and I was going to be a music major. But I fell in love and got pregnant, and it was like, okay, well, I have a good relationship with my dentist, so and he said, hey, Shannon, why don't you come work for me because you're a good talker. And they made me, I always say, I laugh now, but I'm grateful. I was kind of the holding cell, I would say. Patients would come in and they'd put them in my room until they were ready for them because they knew I could just talk about anything. And I worked for 5 different doctors. And then they said, hey, we're going to make you a roving assistant. And they made it sound so great. Well, Rover works with 5 different people, and so I figured if I survive that, I can survive anything, and didn't really know where my career would take me. And it's pretty different, from what I had imagined at the time.
And so when you think dental assistant, you think, okay, they work from 8 to 5. So when you were losing time with your children, obviously it wasn't 8 to 5. You were working after hours. And so talk about that because
yeah, it would almost be something you think, Dr. Talley knows, and I actually feel Dr. Talley knows because he was there, teaching at the Institute, and sometimes they'd come in on Friday night and our Thursday night, and of course for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the time, and sometimes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but I had to prepare for that. So not only did we see patients, the doctor that I worked for was a writer, and so we had to take step-by-step photos, and when I say pictures, we take a million pictures on one case, and sometimes that would take hours, and patients flew in just for cosmetic dentistry, just like Dr. Talley does, and if there was a specific case that we had to do, it could take 8 hours, prepping a full arch, 8 hours, and delivering beautiful temporaries and filming it. Or at the time we actually just took photos, but, and then we'd have to prepare that night for courses for doctors to come in with their team. And, I had to set up all these workstations and things like that. And oh my gosh, I would go get my kids at 6 o'clock, and there would be days where I was there till 12. Driving them home in the middle of the night, and I can tell you all the fast food that we ate. Shannon, first of all, I'm a bad cook anyway, so I can say that. But all the fast food that we ate, if it wasn't for McDonald's and Wendy's and Captain D's, I don't even know how my kids would even eat, but that was just normal, and it became normal, and I will tell you selfishly now, I tell my kids, I'm so sorry for that. I can't get it back, and I'm so sorry for not letting them be kids, and having that time. And my good friend, Kurt Barrett, for any of the listeners today, he has a video, and you got to get ready to cry because you will cry. But it's a video, and it's Act Dental, and it's Kurt Barrett, Act Dental. And he has this video, and it's called 16 Summers. And you have 16 summers. And it's funny because my husband always referred to this. And every time I think about it, I just want to cry because it's like 16 summers, and you don't really think about that. But when you watch the video, you'll bawl. But second of all, we always say that, and it's funny. My husband says it a couple of times a week. He's like, 16 summers, 16 summers. And I'm like, shut up, Kurt, but it's so true. And every day, we're blessed, sometimes it's a curse and a blessing, because that's what I took away from that, and being a mom that just was the breadwinner, and again, really the person that took care of my kids, and nothing to say about my ex-husband, but he just didn't know how, and so I say that now with my 8-year-olds, and my older kids will say, I can't believe you're letting them get away with the things they get away with. And I'm like, I'm old, but I'm also like, hey, it's, if I could take it all back and do it different, I would, and just spending that time is so precious. And this is why I think, having grandkids, I can't make it up to my kids, but I can spoil my grandkids and actually double spoil them to try to make it up, to my older kids, because, again, it wasn't right. And so hopefully at some point in their life, they'll forgive me for that, and see that I'm really trying to make it up to them. I think through my grandkids, because they know they'll call me like, Mimi, can I get I need a bathing suit. Mimi, can I get a backpack? And they know they call me Mimi's going to do it, and they can get anything they want, because it's different when you got grandkids. I love my kids, but man, I love my grandkids 10 times more.
Oh my gosh, that's what you hear. Everyone says that, every grandparent. But I'm sure the fact that you have acknowledged it and you are apologizing, that's huge. I think what happens, what scars people is that when parents or just people in general don't acknowledge wrongdoing, the fact that you're apologizing, it kind of brings closure. Like, okay, and now that, I'm a parent, I understand. And it's just when you don't acknowledge and you don't apologize, I think that does more harm than anything. So don't beat yourself up. It is what it is. And as we get older, we realize, man, I could have done things differently, but you're doing things differently now with the knowledge that you have now. And then when talking with people on the podcast, that's what I'm getting, is that we just want to be seen, heard, acknowledged. We want to ask for forgiveness just like we want to forgive. And yeah, that's the bottom line. We're not trying to all be perfect. We're just trying to do the best that we can, acknowledge our flaws, and keep it moving.
Kids need to be validated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, just listening, for the things that have happened the last couple of days with, I hate to bring up the Oscars, but just bringing things up and just listening to so many people. We all have your own opinions, and talking with my kids, it's different, with some of my two children, listening, my older daughters, two older ones, listening to their opinions, because I want to listen to them first. Mom don't want to say something wrong first. I want to hear how they feel, and the things that they, their approach, and some of the things that they feel. Now more than ever, I'm getting smarter, I think, hopefully, as I get older, and then listening to two of my other daughters, and just knowing that, I will tell you that one of my daughters I never thought would be as successful. I always felt like she was my wild child. And she is actually the smartest out of all three. Hopefully they won't listen to the podcast and be mad at me for saying that. And she's the one that has 3 kids. She just had a baby, and the baby is 12 weeks old, and she has a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and had them back to back. And her, she just opened her own hair salon. And so she's got a new business she's starting. And then, hopefully my future son-in-law, who I love probably more than I love her, lays down carpet, and he is such a hard worker. And I see them and just them really trying with such young kids and trying to have this whole persona and, of just changing the way people look at, kids and people today. And I will tell you, one of the things she said to me yesterday is, Mom, Sherrod and I were walking around the store, and they were getting some food at the grocery store for the kids, and they went shopping together with all 3 kids, which, doesn't happen in that. I'm sure you and Dr. Talley and your kids don't go to shoot. I'm like, I'll pay my husband to go to the grocery store, right? I ain't going with you.
No.
Go by yourself. And she said they were walking around the store, and this lady stopped them and said, I've been listening to what you were saying to your kids in the store and watching you guys walk around and just talk together about the meals and the things that but then, the kids are getting into things, and he's taking care of the 2 boys while she's trying, and the baby's got to breastfeed right in the middle of the store, and so I'm cracking up as she's telling me the story, but then I'm so proud of her. And she said, Mom, if there wasn't anything that I got out of the Oscars, we have to teach our kids that everybody's always watching. And it can be anybody at any given time. They're always watching us. And I never want someone, I know I am at a point in my life where I can change what people think about people just through us. And I was like, is this my kid? And so I was like, oh my gosh, I just love this. And I love what at such a young age, they're 24 and 25. And I'm so proud of her. And I'm just like, honey, you are so wise to be so young. And just hearing some of the things, about them and how they're raising their kids. And I just said, oh my gosh, I told her, I was like, I got to get you on Lyanette's podcast, because just knowing that mindset of these 2 kids, I say kids, just young adults, and what they're trying to do and trying to change just the way people look at family, because you just don't see, a young kid trying to make it and then building this family life from the ground up and being so good at it. I'm just so proud of them. And that was one of the things that she said, Mom, we're not upset with you about the way that we were raised. I mean, we just didn't think any different. She said, but the one thing I will say that is good out of what you did teach us is hard work. And just, not being lazy and not going to work. And we know what we're going through right now with people that don't want to go to work and not get up every day. She said, so the one thing I would say is, yes, we could have spent more time together. But the other thing that I can tell you is you inbred in us that at the end of the day, we have to be dedicated to our jobs and our craft. Or, if we want to be successful, it's not just going to come to us and be handed to us. We have to really look at that. And so I just hope she finds the balance too, of family life and just finding that. But just hearing that from her, I was like, okay, well, maybe he didn't do so bad, based upon the.
I think what happens, we beat ourselves up more than our kids beat us, over the head with stuff. Like, I feel like I could have done so many things differently with my oldest, but, I was 21 when I had her, so I only could do with the tools that I had. And so I regret a few things because now I know better. Now I know what not to stress over, what not to nitpick, because there's certain things that it's like not even worth it. And so I think my younger daughter gets a better version of me. And but the thing with you had to work, obviously, to provide for your children, but you actually, you love what you do. And I can see that. And Briana can attest to that because Briana has worked alongside you. She's seen you in action. You're like a superstar. Yeah. You're a superstar in the dental community. And so you've turned that into speaking engagements and you travel everywhere. To hear more amazing female warrior stories, hit that subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating. We would truly appreciate the love. Now back to our show.
So whenever I first met Shannon, I had heard about her a lot through Dr. Talley. I worked with Dr. Talley for on and off for 8 or 9 years. And I will always idolize Dr. Talley, just like Shannon was saying. Him and Lyanette are marriage goals, parent goals. They're just phenomenal people. So I already had so much respect for Dr. Talley. And I feel like Dr. Talley has a lot of respect for Shannon. So I got that. And then I met her for the first time at Hinman, which is like a big dental convention in Atlanta. And I just remember being so intimidated. I was so nervous because Dr. Talley had, said all of these great things about her. And so whenever I met her at Hinman, I don't remember. It was so many years ago, but I remember Dr. Talley and Shannon, we went out to dinner that night with the whole team and they were like, well, maybe you can do training one day for Invisalign with Shannon. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then the first time I actually did end up doing the training with them. And the first time I met her in person, I just remember being so intimidated and listening to her speak. I was just in awe, the knowledge. And I had known a little bit of her background, that she was previously a single mother and things like that. So I was kind of in the same position. I had my son at a young age, and then I fell into dentistry accidentally and was a single mom. So I had to work to provide for him, obviously. So just being in the same room with somebody who did all of this stuff and did it with grace and was so dedicated to her career and being able to speak so well and, still being a mother at the same time, it was really encouraging for me being, so young and kind of in the thick of it at the time. So it was a big deal to be able to meet her and work alongside with her after everything her and Dr. Talley had told me about her. So it was a really cool experience for sure. So definitely an inspiration to me. And I remember I came home, I had asked for a picture with you and Eric, and I came home and I was like, look at this picture, Dr. Talley. I was sweating, my hands were shaking. I felt like I was meeting Beyonce.
she's like a celebrity in my eyes.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Yeah, it was
She's
fantastic.
So sweet. Oh man. No, I will tell you that I think sometimes we just don't see the things in ourselves that are really
Absolutely.
there, and I feel like that, there's, things that I love. I think that's probably why I'm so close to Dr. Talley, is I think that he sees things in people that they don't see themselves, and every one of us has a gift. Every one of us has a gift. And sometimes it just takes somebody else to see it and to bring that gift out. I always said, my mom always told me, you hard work and dedication, you can't just halfway work. You really have to be dedicated. And even though it could be, oh my gosh, I remember my first practice, it within the first week that I worked in this office, they brought this rake out, and the doctor, I was like, what's he doing with that rake? And he said, every day when patients leave, you got to rake the carpet. We had shag carpet. And I was like, rake the carpet? I mean, what?
What the heck?
And he literally brought this rake out. And I'm like, is he on drugs or something? What is he talking about? I'd never seen this, and listen, like I said, I grew up in a trailer park, and it things like that did not bother me, but I'd never seen somebody raking the rug. And it was shag carpet, and he said, that's how we fluff it, and this is what we do. And then he shared with me how to clean the traps and, clean toilets and all of those things. And I did it with pride. And I always look back on that now because I always remember it. And I will say, though, is, that was the one thing that I always did. No matter how much I was tired or just exhausted, I still got up and I went to work every single day and never missed a day. And I would be sick as a dog before I'd call in sick because I knew that they depended on me, and so that was one of the things. But sometimes that can be bad too, because with my kids, it was like, okay, work, I put it first, I put it first. And I think we just, again, have to have that balance. But the only good thing I will say is my kids don't miss a day of work. They can be sick and they still go. They can be mistreated. One of my daughters one of my daughters works for a person that just really and truly, I think, just doesn't know how to treat people. And, but you know what? She gets up and she still goes to work every day. And I said, listen, you do not have to take that, and she says, Mom, you told me you never quit a job until you got another job. And she said, you know what? I'm going to see what I can do to change him, because I said, well, honey, a lot of times it's not you. It's something to do with them, and she still, she loves her patients and she loves what she does, and she's hoping she can change it, but she's so dedicated, and sometimes that can be a double-edged sword. But at the end of the day, I'm proud of her, and proud of all of them. And again, but just you got to find that balance, and sometimes I think having podcasts like this and people that you can just talk to and just having somebody to listen that's been there and maybe helping you through these things, especially now more than ever. It is hard to be a mom. It is probably, I think, harder now than it was, definitely, because I don't know how in the world I got through it, with my first set of kids. I said, oh my gosh. I mean, my oldest daughter must have been more the mom, because I don't remember a lot of the things that even went on, because I was working and depending on them. And I just said, now it's like, oh my gosh, it's totally different, and I'm there when they get off the bus. I'm in a luxury now where I can kind of make my hours a little bit later, where I can take them to the bus stop and they get on. I try to be there if I can in the afternoons, if I don't have, patients, or my husband can be there. And we're really trying to be a part of their life, and I can tell you, I don't really remember ever being able to do that with my older kids. And so I said, I got to find a balance for that, because they're only little once, and you can't get that back. Once it's gone, it's gone. Mm-hmm. And so if there's anything that you can tell yourself as a mom, that we're not promised tomorrow, and any time that you can possibly spend with them, whether it be coming home 1 hour early, or saying, you know what, I'm going to turn the TV off tonight and I'm not going to watch TV. I'm going to play Candyland or something. Those kids will remember those things. And again, you can't get that time back. And I should never put my job, I think, before those times, and so again, that's one of the reasons why I just really want to make this change for my kids and my grandkids, and hopefully make that difference. But I think, like I said, we all want to be successful, and you can have both. You just have to try to figure out, how can you make that happen? But,
yeah, I was going to ask you that, because people, always are trying to find the balance. And I think nowadays people are like, well, it's not really a balance. When you're working, you should just be all in. And then when with your kids or your family, you should be focused on that. I have a friend who's been on the show, and she's been very open about, but she loves her job. Like, she loves it so much, and she travels, and she feels guilty because she enjoys working, but she feels like, well, I shouldn't enjoy it so much that, I'm missing time with my kids. And, we put so much guilt on ourselves. And
mom guilt is the worst.
Yeah.
Mom guilt can take over.
So how have you found that?
Yeah.
Because obviously you still, I'm assuming you still love what you're doing. How did you find that? How did you ever feel guilty about loving your job so much and not always being there for the kids? And how has that evolved?
Yes. I think, I will say that, it's good that she loved her job, because if you don't love your job, that trickles into everything else. I mean, you don't think you're making your kids' life miserable, but you will, because they can sense that, these kids know that you're not happy. The other thing is I don't want my kids to have, I don't want them to have the same life that, I mean, listen, I've worked for people that I didn't really want to work for, but I knew, always tell yourself, if you're not happy, you'd never want to walk out and change your integrity for somebody else. There's always something greener, and you can make that change, but I will say that there's nothing wrong with loving your job. I loved dentistry with all my heart. I would not change any of that, especially when there are times over the last year where I did work for a doctor that I did for the first time in my entire life walk out on, because I did not like the way he was treating me, treating some of the team members there. It was very, very abusive, piece, but I was just filling in, so I really could leave, and I was a lucky one. But I will say that, there, for people in that practice that were so unhappy, and some of them I've actually found other jobs for, and he knows it wasn't something that I hid from him. We were friends, and he was not the person I thought he was. And I told him, hey, listen, this goes deeper than the team. You need an out, and it's personal for him, but he shouldn't take this out on the team. And it's very similar. When you're not happy with your job, your family is going to get the brunt of that. And I think that that's one of the great things about being happy. For me, what I see is just even like taking my kids to swimming lessons. I can sit there on my phone while they're in the pool, but they're looking up every time they're taking a breath of air, and they got goggles on, and you think they're not looking at you, and they'll tell me, I saw you on your phone. And I'm like, how did you see me on the phone? You had goggles on, And they're like, I saw you on the phone. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I got to put that phone away. So even if it's just one breath of air, if they come out of the water and they see me on that phone, I ruined the whole thing, right? Yeah. They think I'm on the phone the whole time. And I think that's what we have to do. And I've told myself, come, this time I'm shutting it off. I got to turn that phone off. And if I'm going somewhere with them, especially practice or, whether they're having soccer practice or again, swimming lessons, whatever, when you're there as a mom, you got to be there. Dad's got to be there, turn it off because they're watching. I think sometimes we just think, and again, I think just, but it's good to love what you do because it will trickle over, and having your family to choose something that they love, as well, because that's what I told my daughter. If you don't love being an oral surgeon assistant, then let's find something that you will love. Now, you ain't going to sit on my couch. You're going to do something. Mm-hmm. But I said, if you don't love it, then what would you love? Because I'd rather make less money and have a job that I love than to make money and be miserable. And I've always said that to my kids, and life is not always about money. But I will say that I think, also knowing that something that you love, you'll do really well at it. And hopefully you will make the money because it does all, I think, snowball, into the fact of loving what you're doing and making more money because of the passion that you have for that job. And that's what I always feel like with successful people is you do got to love what you do because it comes through. People can see that, my patients can see that I love what I do. And if I don't like what I'm doing, they know. People are good readers, at least most of them anyway. And so I think that's something that, it's good to love your job. But at the end of the day, we do need to cut that off. If somebody's a bad cook like me and we do eat out a lot, even still, even though I cooked a bad meal on Monday, I cooked it, and I'm like, hey guys, sorry, but, I'm cooking and we're sitting down and eating, and so I think that that's something you just got to tell yourself. I know you can't do it every day if you're really busy, but trying to find as much time as you can to be present. Mm-hmm. It's something that I'm really trying to make sure that I'm doing.
And like you said, they're watching. I don't have a career of my own, but, when I was working at the office a few years ago, I quit in 2020. So I was there for like 3 years after being at home for like 10. And it was so challenging. It was very challenging for me, but I grew a lot. But in the process, my youngest was like, this is stressing you out, and this is daddy's vision, and this is his, this is what he loves to do. This is not what you love to do. Why are you doing this? And I was just trying to tell her, like, I'm supporting, your dad, and I just feel like I need to be here to help him. She's like, well, you need to start doing what you love and what you're passionate about. And this is not it. You need to follow your dreams. And I'm just like, okay.
Leave it to Kaylin.
Wow. She's like, yeah, I mean, that's just her personality. She's like, so if you want to, because I had been talking about doing this podcast for a while, and she'll randomly will ask me like, what is it that you want? Like when you were going to college, what is it that you want? I told her, I went to school for journalism and I thought I was going to go into television or radio or, I worked at a radio station before I got pregnant with Kaylin, with my 21-year-old. My gosh, I can't believe I have a 21-year-old. But then I got pregnant and then I was like, well, I can't stay at here because they're only paying me $7 an hour. That worked when it was just me, myself, and I, but it's not going to work, raising a child. So I quit that. And, obviously I didn't pursue that. She's like, well, you can still do it. You can still do it. You need to start doing the podcast. So she's so proud that I'm doing this. And you don't realize that they are watching, and she's a little girl, so she has her big dreams. And if mommy's not pursuing her dreams and loving what she's doing, then what's that say about me? So she's all she loves her father very much, but she knew that I was stressed out.
I knew it too.
Wow. How smart is she, though? She needs to be a counselor. I mean, it's like, what is in her future? I can't wait to see that.
She's been, since she was born, she's just been a little spitfire, and she just says whatever's on her mind. And
she does.
And she's an observer. So I'm like, I need to start doing things for me because she knows I love, like they know these kids, if you are in tune with them, they know you love them. So they, in return, want us to be happy. So the fact that you found that balance where you're still doing what you love, but you're still present for your kids, that's all they want. Present when you're not working and you're hanging out with me, that you're not on your phone. And so for my friend who's been on the show before, you know who you are, you don't feel guilty. Like when you're with your kids, I'm sure you're with your kids. And when you're at work, it's okay to love what you're doing. So
kids pay attention more than we think they do. They know more than we think they know.
Yeah.
I agree. And your friend should not feel guilty. I mean, she's so blessed. I mean, oh my God, to be in a job that she loves, that is a blessing. I mean, that is a blessing. So she shouldn't feel bad at all. I am sure that her persona of work and having something she loves trickles over to her family. And because, when things are not, when you're not happy, and I can remember being in this practice, even just a short period of time, I'd come home and every day I'd come home and I would just want to cry. And I have cried. And not cry for me, but cry for the way that he was treating his team.
Yeah.
And those people, because I'm going to leave. Shannon ain't there full time, and these team members. And that's why I was like, why do you guys, take this? And some of them were single moms and some of them didn't know any better. And it felt like that was the only place they could ever go. And unfortunately, that happens a lot. And it is happening a lot in dentistry, and so I feel like this is where she should be celebrating to have something that she really loves.
Briana, do you have any questions? You're mighty quiet over there.
I don't. Now I'm just listening to everything. I mean, I have so many questions, like things you guys talked about. As of right now, I'm staying at home with my son and my husband, and we're hoping to have another baby soon. So right now, I don't have a career of my own either. My husband works, but I was in dentistry for 10 years, and I loved it. And I think that when you're going, like sometimes I'll look back and I'm like, how did I do all that? Like now it's hard for me to peel myself out of bed to take him to school, like, so it's tough. But I think when you're in it, you do what you got to do. And I also feel like there are so many years of, my son is 9, but like, sometimes I don't remember him being a toddler just because our life was full of nothing but like stress and work and, being financially stressed out and being a single mom and stuff like that. It was tough. So I'm trying to enjoy more time with him. I'm trying to be more present. I'm trying to create routines that him and I have to where it's quality time. I think I don't know. I want, my husband and I are trying for another baby. He's not my son's father, but we're trying. And I think something that's holding me back that, maybe I could talk to about with you two is like, I feel nervous about having another one because I feel like I don't want my son to feel like he was like the guinea pig where I was like, I worked all the time and I was stressed out and I made so many mistakes and I was young and we kind of like grew up together. And I'm like, having another one and then things being better now, I'm kind of nervous about that. So I think like with, you two and your blended families, that's something maybe we could eventually talk about. But yeah, so that's really about it. I don't have a lot of input.
I told her she needs to get over that feel. And then you also said that you're afraid that you're not going to love them as much as you love the first one.
I'm nervous about that.
Our hearts as humans are big enough to love each child that comes.
Yeah. I think,
Absolutely. And listen, what you'll find is, you just have to tell yourself you always have to make time that's different, make the time for them. But I would tell you that I think sometimes we just like my daughter, who's my youngest daughter, at 16, selfishly, she was like, "What?" When I remember when we told her that we were pregnant, she was like, "What?"
Yeah.
She did not. She was like, "I'm the baby," and I was like, "Well, no, you're kind of not," And I can tell you though, my daughter thinks she walks on water. She loves her. She would do anything for her, and like the 16-year difference. And you would think that was really Haley's baby. When I had her, it was like the exact opposite. And having twins, we needed help. But I will say that they're going to be so close, Brianna. I think you'll be really surprised. And I think sometimes having the age gap this is where the age gap, I think, helps you. My kids were like stepping stones every 2 years, but having the age gap of, your child and then now having, a child with your husband, I actually think that's going to work in your favor. I think you're going to be really surprised at how close they will be. And now having almost like a protective, this whole protection persona comes over. So I think you'll be really shocked at what will happen.
I hope so. Maddox is used to being the only child, and we actually got pregnant at the end of last year, and unfortunately I had a miscarriage. But whenever I told him that I was pregnant, he lost his mind. He cried. He was like, "Why is this happening to me? I'm going to lose time with you." And he had all of these, he was so apprehensive about it. But then he came around to it, and he was super excited to be a big brother and stuff. So yeah, but he was not happy about it at first, but I'm hoping it'll, I don't know. I think just mom guilt can take over your entire being. I get so guilty about things. And even when I feel like now, obviously we are in a much better, I'm much happier. He's much happier. There's,
more stability in your guys'
more stability,
lives. Yeah.
less stress. And I still go to bed sometimes and I'm like, man, did I spend enough time with him? Was I patient enough? And I just, I think that's something I struggle with the most. But
I've come to realize that for some reason now we want our kids to always be happy, and all the books that I'm reading about, I'm so into this whole emotion thing, and there's books out there that talk about all the different emotions like anger, fear, disappointment, all these things are so necessary for our growth as humans, and we have to stop trying to make our kids happy all the time. They're not going to grow as humans in a resilient way if they are always thinking when they go out into the real world, it's going to smack them across the face because they're just used to being happy and catered to all the time. So I'm learning it's okay, because I see my oldest going through her, some anxiety issues and depression and struggles. And I'm learning that it's okay to just be there, because I want to fix it and make her happy. Well, what's wrong? So let's fix it. Because we got to get you happy, because happy is the goal. And I'm realizing no, happy isn't always the goal. We have to go through these hard times in order to grow as people.
Yeah. And
so I'm letting go of that and just sitting there. It's okay to sit with these emotions. As long as we don't stay there forever and ever, it's okay to be there. And so I find that's what you do with Maddox.
Yeah.
Is you just want him to be happy all the time.
I do.
I'm the same way, but I'm no, it's okay. They're sad.
Yeah. I want to overcompensate for being so young whenever I had him. And then obviously being so young and being raised the way that I was raised or not raised. The first several years of his life was just a constant struggle. So I'm trying to overcompensate with every single thing I do. And even sometimes my husband is you have to relax. He's good. He's okay. Happy. He's well taken care of. Yeah. And so I'm trying.
It's an insecurity within us.
It is. And if he's the first time I sense that he is stressed or sad or angry or whatever, I'm just okay, what do I need to do?
Yeah,
what do I need to do? So I'm trying to get away from that. I'm trying to, just let him feel his things and me feel mine.
And just find out where that's coming from so that they learn, okay, I'm stressed. This is what's going on. And this is how I can overcome it. I don't know. We're learning together. This is new information for me. I'm damn it, I should have read these books 21 years ago.
Right. Yeah. They're,
Oh, I see. Well, I tell you, one of the things that I do with my kids is, because I was always gone, and always working, is I would, I felt possessions were going to make things right. And actually that ended up, I think as a parent, oh my gosh, I mean, my kids had iPods, and they had, at the time they had, they had iPods, they had anything that I could do, clothes, expensive shoes. I always felt like that was the way for me, because that's my love language too, is gifts. So that kind of hurt as well. But I always tried to make it up and buying them things and thinking, well, you know what? I know I can't be there today, but I'll get you this and get you that. And for them, at the time I thought I was doing a really, making it up to them, and it wasn't, and I think that is something even now I have to watch myself, because I want to make it up to them, and, it's time that they need. And so that's something that I have to, just get over myself, and so Lyanette, listen to you about the feelings and things like that. It's very wise, and that's something that right now we're all seeing in a lot of kids, is some anxiety and depression, including my own daughter. And so, hearing that, I think it makes people feel like, yes, okay, somebody else is going through what I'm going through. Where I feel like, if you said, what mistakes do you feel you made? I feel like probably, not just spending the time with them or trying to make the time whenever I could have, because I'm so exhausted, but I still should have. But also, I think trying to overcompensate them for not being there. And that actually, hit me in the end, because these kids had no understanding of a dollar. I mean, I didn't teach them that you save money and you don't just spend money like crazy, and just having all of these things, they didn't really even appreciate it,
Exactly.
And it was like, I'd see an iPod just kind of thrown down here, or find it in a toy box and scratched up, and they'd be like, oh, that's okay if it tears up, because mom will buy us another one, just having that. And I told my husband, I said, that's the one thing I don't want to do with, my twins, because their persona of, just having all these things, it was like, well, it's okay, mom will buy us another one, and that started with me, that came from me. And so that's one of the things that I have said, to my kids is, don't do like I did. And because it's like, where do you go from there? You get them an iPod, you get them an iPad, you get them an iPhone, it's about buying a car, you get them this car, and then you move up this car and this car. It's like, well, what are they going to look forward to? And are they really working for it? And so, and I never made my kids even work for it. It's like they didn't even pick up a towel. I mean, and so it's like, okay, we got to change that. And so that's one of the things that I'm working on right now is the chore piece, because my kids, even these kids are kind of spoiled. And I'm like, hey, we got to get back to, listen, I cleaned floors and did everything. My mom had me a whole list of chores.
Oh, yes.
And these kids,
Nope.
no.
Yep.
But I know my husband goes, that's the world today. And I'm like, yeah, but we got to change it, because
Exactly.
I don't want kids just like thinking that everything's going to be handed to them, And so there's one thing I'm working on right now. It's that. So whenever you have a podcast about that, you let me know so I can listen, because I need some help.
I struggle with that.
So hard. It is. But my dad didn't come from a lot. And so his showing love was gifts and like big houses, and now look at us, look at what I've provided. And right before he passed away, we had this big powwow, because I've taken the 5 love language test, and gifts is not my love language. I like a good gift, but it came back as 0%. So that's not my love language. So, towards the end, I didn't know we didn't know he was going to pass away, but I'm glad we had this conversation, that's how he thought, he was providing, providing was love for him, because he didn't have that growing up. His mom my grandmother worked all the time, and he didn't have a father. And, so that was, and I'm like, my love language is quality time. So I'm like, I needed you to be present. And now that you're ready, I've moved on and started my own family, and now you're ready because, you're getting older and you want that connection. And so, that following year he passed away. But, I wish we had that conversation before and sooner. So now with my kids, we can afford to get them a lot of things, but my youngest, she's like, you never buy me anything, only for my birthday and Christmas. I'm like, yeah, because anything else, you're just gonna have to, work. And so she's like, well, what can I do around the house to earn money? what do you want me to do to earn money? Because just because we can doesn't mean we have to.
Right.
And I don't. Like, she knows when we go to the store, she can't just be like, hey, can I have that? Because the answer is no. So when I do say yes, it's a happy surprise.
That's something.
Because I'm like you,
that.
Shannon, when you see that crap, I get pissed. I get so pissed. So when I've gotten her stuff when she was younger and I just see it thrown around, I turn into a monster. Because I'm like, you have no idea how other people live, that they don't have all this like this shit and crap that you have. And then you're treating it like with disrespect. So I get very mad and I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to get mad anymore. So I'm going to stop buying stuff because they don't appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I'm with you.
Infuriating.
Oh man, I turn incredible monster too.
Yeah.
And I also, I mean, it's just like a lady in my shop has a younger daughter, and they don't have a lot of money. And I bought my daughter when she was younger a Barbie house. This dream house. That's like a house for us. I mean, they're expensive. And she loved it. She loved it all the time. Well, I thought, and that was secondhand. I just bought it off of some website or some app. So I thought, you know what? For her birthday, I'm going to get her a new one. And that girl played with that Barbie house for a week, and she hasn't touched it since. And my husband said, what are we going to do with this thing? And I said, you know what we're going to do? She's going to give it to somebody who has no money. And I said, because I don't sell things anymore. Anything that I have, I'm so blessed, and I have so much. I give it away. It's one of the things that I have said I've changed over the last 2 years. I don't sell anything. I give it away. And I will tell you that what makes me so happy is when I see these photos of this young little girl playing with this Barbie house. And I told my daughter, I said, here's the problem is I created a monster by not having you, again, feel like this was a very big deal. And not that her not playing with it bothers me, but it was just like, and I said, this is all starting from me. I have got to change that. So I want to know your secret to that, because I'm going to tell you that's what I got mad.
I just got real mad. And so now she buys her own stuff. She buys her own stuff. So if she doesn't play with it, I don't get upset, because that was your hard-earned money and you decided to buy some stupid ass toy that I knew when you bought it that you weren't going to play with it. So the other day we had that conversation. She's like, man, we were having that conversation because she's getting older. So she's realizing that she's not wanting to just spend her money on crap. And I'm like, see, you see why I don't like to buy you stuff, because that. And she's like, no, I understand. I don't know. I think I'm trying to find peace within myself. That's including, that's including my kids, not just outside people. That's my kids, my husband, everything. I'm trying to find peace within me, because I have high anxiety and I know what things trigger that. And I was tired of feeling so wound up and always kind of feeling that anger bubble over. And so I try to eliminate things that do that for me. And if in the process, it's not hurting my kids, but in the process, if I'm like making her say like, well, you don't buy me anything, then so be it. Like, I don't care. Like, at least I still have at least I'm not cussing you out every 2 seconds because I'm bending over backwards for you. So
she'll appreciate stuff
so
more.
I think I'm on this journey of finding peace within and eliminating things that I know bring that monster out, if that makes sense. And if it's something that is not that big of a deal, like buying stuff for my kids, then that's what it is. And if it's, cutting off friendships because they just don't serve me in that way anymore because I've grown as a person, then that's what it is. So I don't know what the secret is. I think I'm just more empowered. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I've been reading too many books. Too many books.
I struggle with that bad with Maddox. I want to,
because they still love you in the end. That's
and he
the thing.
doesn't value it.
Yeah, but they still love you. They're upset for 2 seconds. Yeah. They're not going to not love you because we're not doing these things for them. So
even when I tell him no, he may be upset for like a second or be like, why? Or whatever. But it's me. It's me. I'm like, oh my, I will literally stay up at night thinking about like, man, I should have gotten that for him or whatever. But he doesn't care.
No,
ultimately
they
he
don't
doesn't care.
So I would love to have you back on, Shannon, to talk about other things. Because like you said, you have so many roads that we can go down. This was a great topic because as women, this is something that whether we're a stay-at-home mom or whether we're working parents, there's always something that we're feeling that we're not balancing well. So I'm glad that you shared your wisdom with us.
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm old, so hopefully help somebody today. And I would tell you, if any of your listeners, if you get a chance to Google that on YouTube, it's Kurt Barrett, and it's called it's Act Dental, and it's 16 summers. And I would tell you that you get ready to cry. It's very short video, but it's like, oh my gosh, she's so right. And just reminding, each other. I think having, my husband remind me about these things sometimes is good too. But it's a great little video, and just telling yourself, you can only give time, and again, you can't get it back. And so I have to tell myself that every day, trying to think about what time can I spend with them, and selfishly give them the time that they deserve. And so I just appreciate you having me on and letting us share stories. And it's been fun. I love this, and I'm sure if anyone is needing any help, like I said, with one of the things about the IVF was they asked me would I be a part of they have a chat room, and I thought, who wants to hear from me? And if there's anything that I can pass along, is I said if I could go back to school, that's what I would be as a fertility doctor, because they need hope. People need hope, and if your friend needs any advice or anything that I can help her with, please let me know. And like I said, just appreciate you letting me share some of my personal stories, and look forward to being on here again. I'd love to be a guest. So thank you for having me. And Bree, it's so great to be with you too.
Yes.
And just being with you guys. And it's been fun.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I will end with this quote. One day you will wake up and there won't be any more time to do the things that you've always wanted. Do it now. Thank you so much for listening to Virago 24/7. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and please give us 5-star ratings. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Virago 24_7 and on Facebook at Virago 24/7. And just connect with us and share your story. We'd love to hear from you.